Hey everybody, welcome to Climb the Ladder for our 82nd episode presented by Washed Up Network. I'm your co-host Hunter, and my equally good-looking twin brother Duncan is sitting right here with me. Thank you to everybody who's been tuning in each week. Be sure to join our brand new Facebook group called The Climbers, a group specially made for you. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes and Spotify. You can see two of the same face when you head over to YouTube. This episode is brought to you by our newest sponsor. We partnered up with Rugged Roots to get you guys the best in beard products. Use code LADDER20 for 20% off your purchase at ruggedroots.com. That's LADDER20 at ruggedroots.com for 20% off your purchase. I just got myself some of the nice new coffee vanilla beard balm, and man, it smells good, it feels good, and it looks good. So go get yourself some of that at ruggedroots.com. As always, let's climb the ladder.
All right, diving into episode 82. As most of you should know, national championship was last night, so we've got a full recap coming. Hunter and I were able to watch the game. Both great games, so we'll dive into that here soon. We're going to kick it off with a little conversation about the Seahawks now that their season is officially over after not making the playoffs for only, I believe, the second time since drafting Russell Wilson. And then we're going to wrap it up with a little Kraken talk. Season's about 30 games in so far, but we've still got a long way to go. So with all that, always brought to you by Rugged Roots. Excited to get my hands on some of that beard balm as well. I noticed Hunter did a little trim possibly. But yeah, here we go. Seahawks season is over. Hunter, thoughts on week 18 game and what we need to do going into the postseason?
Yeah, I mean, first off, you got to like the extended week 18. It felt like just the right amount of time where you're not ending the season, going into the new year, but you get to get into the new year. You still have another week of football. And just an electric weekend, really. No Monday night football because of the national championship game, but a couple Saturday games, which is always fun. And I think that week 18 is a good NFL transition from the regular season to the postseason, because playoffs, we've always had the wild card Saturday games, but I like the week 18, the inaugural week 18. I thought it was good. And there was a lot riding on a lot of these final games, even though the Seahawks weren't in it, any playoff contention in the end, the rest of the NFC West was all at the same time, going into that final week. So the Seahawks playing the top team, which was the Cardinals, and then the Rams finished up at the top of the West. But even coming down to it with the 49ers Rams game in overtime, the Seahawks, I mean, had a nice statement win. That feels good going into the offseason. So I like what we saw in the Seahawks for the past couple of games. Definitely a strong finish to a tough season. And I mean, really, like, not that it's all about Russ, but these were the first games that Russ has missed in the last decade. And if you put him in back in those games, maybe we don't win all four of them. Four, right?
I was gonna say six. Four sounds well.
I think it was 4 plus a bye week.
Maybe that's what it was. So yeah, 4 games.
But anyway, okay, you don't win all four games, but we finished 7-10. So even if you win 2, probably 3 of those games, or also Russ had a slow going to get back into it. So then maybe that's where you're thinking that 6 weeks, then I think out of those 4 games, if not the 6, when Russ came back early, we go 4-2 in those games. And, we beat out the 49ers for an NFC wildcard spot. So I think that with a healthy Russell Wilson, I mean, you saw it now these last couple of games, just demolished the Lions at home, and now the Cardinals in Arizona, which is always a tough end of the season matchup.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, what the season was. I was happy that we finished 7-10. I remember after the Bears 1 point loss that we had in Seattle, I was like, man, 5-10, like that just sounds brutal. But finishing 7-10 reminds me of the Beast Quake year in 2010, 2011, when we upset the Saints in Seattle and we were 7-9. And that just shows you we were in the playoffs at that point. That's how bad the NFC West was at that time. But man, if I just reflect on the schedule, even the last few games, great statement victories over the Lions and the Cardinals. Cardinals obviously in the playoffs, and we also had some good victories over other playoff teams. The 49ers, we didn't show up at all against the Packers. And we had a lot of close games. We only
But
lost
also, really quick, just while you're running through a couple of those, not close against the Packers. Obviously, that was Geno Smith territory, but the Packers lost in week 18 to the Lions, and we put up a 50 burger on the Lions. So therefore, we're better than the Green Bay Packers, who got the NFC top spot and the bye week.
right. And I mean,
You
we
want to think of it that way.
kicked off the season in Indianapolis with a great win, and we all thought that that was going to be the representation of our season. And then we only lost to the Titans, who are the top AFC seed, by 3. That was an overtime game. And then we had some division games, but we had a close one with the Steelers by 3, close one with the Saints by 3. Packers, like you said, not close, but then another close one by 2 with Washington, a close one by 1 with the Bears. I mean, that's like 5 games that we were within 3 points, and our season could have been completely different. We could have been sitting here instead of being 7-10. That could have been I don't know, maybe we win 4 of those and we get a little,
Right.
what's that, 11 and
Yeah, I was
6?
thinking
That's
11
it.
win season. Yeah, 11 and
Yeah, 11
6.
and 6. So,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that's a field goal at the most in any of those games, with a couple overtimes included. So, I I don't think that we hit the panic button yet. I wouldn't mind seeing Russ and Pete both come back next year. I don't know if that's a popular or unpopular opinion. I know people feel like, especially after such a rough season this year, granted Russ was out, that we do need some big changes. But I think if you let Pete simmer in there a little bit more, maybe 1-2 more seasons, actually let him have kind of a final lap with the Seahawks, and then you let Russ cook and just let him do his thing, I think that we're back to the playoffs next year. My one fear, if we let Pete go and we don't hire from within, is we start a rebuild. And I think that we have 1 or 2 shots maybe left for us to get to the Super Bowl again and hopefully win one. And if you bring in a new head coach and start from the ground zero, I just don't know if that happens in Russ's career with Seattle.
Yeah, I know. I like somebody from within or an experienced head coach. We can't go for a new young guy that's gonna bring in this different energy and culture and everything. I mean, Seattle has a culture. Pete Carroll has developed the culture that's been the success for the Seahawks. So I think we have to keep on that track, even if it's not Pete Carroll. I do think Pete will get another season based on how this one ended. Um, I definitely don't think he deserves to be fired like your Matt Nagy or some of these other guys who hit the road and had to go packing. So we'll see. I think Pete and Russ come back. I really think Russ will come back. Like I would put money on that safely. And yeah, we'll see. We're definitely developing some weapons. I think that a couple big factors, the must-haves, is for Metcalf and Lockett to return, because those are Russell's go-to guys. And to have other guys to mix it in there, like, yeah, they come and go, and we develop guys and they kind of move on. But I mean, those two have been in the system for a couple of years now, and they're proven. So I think we got to keep them. I think we need to keep Russ's targets, and I think that would give us a really good shot in a competitive NFC as a whole, but especially the NFC West in these couple of years.
Yeah, we just saw 3 of the 4, obviously us excluded, NFC West teams make the playoffs. So out of right, didn't we get all 3
Yeah,
in? So we got
3 out of 4.
2 of the 3 wild card spots, which is just crazy. And that shows if we were competitive this year, there easily could have been a double-digit win team that didn't make the playoffs just with how it
Totally.
is. So that's crazy. The other 2 things I have before we move on from the Seahawks is question marks around Rashad Penny. He's been getting shopped every offseason. We've always brought him back. He's always just kind of been hanging in the distance, fought some injuries over the last couple seasons, really highly recruited out of San Diego State, led the country in rushing yards when we drafted him that season prior in college. So big question mark with Rashad Penny, especially with how he just exploded these last 3 games. It makes me want to keep him after, if you would have asked me 5 weeks ago, I would have said there's no reason to keep him. So Penny question mark, and then Bobby Wagner and the defense. We've got a young Jordan Brooks who's exciting to build the defense around, but at the same time, Bobby Wagner probably only has a couple, maybe 3-4 years left, and we're going to have to start building up that secondary and edge rushers if we're going to have any chance the next couple seasons.
Yeah, I think Penny definitely proved his worth in these last couple games, and I think that we can see what he is capable of when he's healthy. I think that he would be valuable maybe to trade, but that I mean, if we didn't trade him and he stays healthy, I think he's a valuable weapon to have stick around. But that's just been his downfall, and we really haven't seen fully what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, here's a stat for you, just looking at some rough numbers for Penny with the Seahawks. This was by far his biggest year so far with the Seahawks. Looks like his first season was 2018, so this was his 4th full season. Last season, only 34 yards total. This season, 749 yards with 6 touchdowns, which is just crazy. And of those 749 yards, over 500 of those yards came in the last 6 weeks. So really, I mean, a majority of the season, he had 8 yards, 9 yards, 7 yards, 19 yards, 35 yards. He didn't do anything until halfway through the month of December, which could it be too little too late? I don't know if we're able to tell yet, but I mean, 750 yards with 500 of those in the last month and a half. I think that it showed what he could do, but maybe that's showing another team what he could do. And maybe we're building up some other guys right now.
I just think like we haven't had a full complete season of Chris Carson healthy. And so then we have AJ Collins, we have Homer, we got AP in here as just like a veteran presence, which don't get me wrong, has been awesome. And if he sticks around and comes in once a game, but he can have that effect on the locker room as a future Hall of Famer, that would be huge. We haven't had a running back in there with that kind of success since Lynch. But I do think that we need to pick a guy and go for it. We can't have a 4 or 5 headed running back.
That just shows that, we've rotated easily 4 running backs through the roster regularly all season. Chris Carson, I'd be fine letting him go. We don't need him. Alex Collins, we saw some good promises of him, but we haven't given him the job. So therefore, we're not going to see the production. And Penny, we've seen great flashes of who he can be, multiple 100-yard rushing games. But in his 4th season, we haven't had a full season with him, whether it's injuries or being 3rd on the depth chart. So,
but at 235 pounds and what is he, like 6'1" or something, if that, he is a wrecking ball. He's a force to be reckoned with. And I just think like, let's pick our guy and go for it. I could name, Travis Homer, DJ Dallas, Chris Carson,
Alex
Alex
Collins.
Collins, Rashad Penny. Like, you see those guys sprinkled in every game, which is awesome. But then all of a sudden, how are we 4 or 5 running backs out because they're all hurt? So we go get Adrian Peterson off the couch.
Yeah, I didn't even think of AP for 2 games. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we need to definitely solidify the running back. And then as far as your defensive question, I do like Brooks. We got to keep Bobby Wagner. I really think, is the core of that defense. The edge rushers are really, really looking good. Maybe we go out there and trade for not a veteran corner, but a guy that we can really count on, because we don't want anybody that only has like a year or two left, but that's a pretty typical Seahawks move. So
Right.
I think beefing it up with a corner or a safety to represent the LOB years, I think that would do it.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to look at here going into the offseason. We'll definitely have to keep up on transactions, who we get. Offensive line always has some needs. Defense, there's a lot of holes. So definitely stay tuned on some Seahawks updates. But for now, let's jump into the big event of the week, the college football national championship. Georgia being crowned national champions last night with an absolute great game against Alabama. I mean,
A
back and forth
stunner.
shootout the whole time. And we've got some stuff to break down with that one because it was a fun game. Had to watch some of it on my phone with the lack of internet, which was unfortunate timing, but great game nonetheless.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I don't think that anybody across the country put money against Nick Saban, because you just don't do that. Um, if I had bet against Nick Saban, or if I had bet that Georgia would win, then the Crimson Tide would have won, because to date I have lost every bet that I've done has gone the other way. So anybody can hit me up for if you really need a win one week, I'll just throw it on the other team. But
That's like when you were going to the Mariners games and then the Seahawks game and they were losing anytime you were in attendance. So
yeah,
sounds like something's got to give.
yeah, can't have a good time at live sporting events, but yeah, I mean, for anybody to put money against Nick Saban would just be a fool. But last night, I mean, it was close until 5 minutes left in the third quarter, even longer than that. And then Georgia found something that worked that Alabama wasn't ready for, and they attacked it. And I think they were down 18-13 and went on to win 30-18, 33
Yeah,
to
33.
18.
They had 2 unanswered touchdowns, which was just a great statement for the Bulldogs. I mean, there's a lot that we can talk about here in the next little bit, but their defense as a highlight is something that I would love to talk about. I was talking to a guy this morning about it, and their defense, well, really the defenses on both sides looked like NFL teams, if we're being honest. But Georgia's edge rushers, I mean, they are fast. They flew to the ball and they made Bryce Young look uncomfortable, which we haven't seen hardly at all this season. I mean, Alabama has one loss, or had one loss before yesterday, to Auburn at the end of the game, or to
A&M.
A&M, almost to Auburn. But man, Bryce Young, I mean,
I know
confident Heisman winner coming off, his best season of his career, highly recruited 5-star prospect out of high school. And on the other side, you've got Stetson Bennett, walk on JUCO product, and then came back again to Georgia, dream of going to Georgia, and just outperformed him in all categories.
it's almost like Bryce Young got the Heisman and then he's like, "Oh, I got it."
Yeah, I could see some flashes of who he was this season, but at the same time, he did not play how he has in other games that I've seen. Granted, they did lose their star wide receiver, and I know the announcers were talking about that. Kirk Herbstreit was saying how that was a major factor. But at the end of the day, you're Alabama, you're Nick Saban's team, and Alabama's receiving core is pretty deep with personnel. It's not like they
Yeah,
lost
they
their one
are.
guy.
And that's hard
So
to pin it on that problem. I just think he wasn't as confident, and maybe he thought of the SEC championship that they had something there. But really, I mean, he he just looked a little bit out of sorts, and Stetson Bennett looked a whole hell of a lot better. He was
yeah,
there to win. It's his senior year. He was there to represent the Georgia Bulldogs as a Georgia boy. He had quite a different journey than Bryce Young did. I mean, they were talking about the fact that in both of their second years out of high school, Bryce Young wins the Heisman and goes to the national championship, and Stetson Bennett was a walk-on for Georgia, transferred to a JUCO to get some reps, and then back to Georgia to get the starting spot. But don't even forget, he didn't even have the spot last season to JT Daniels, who came out from California, and then Stetson Bennett just went out there and rocked it last night.
yeah, he looked really good. Bryce Young looked okay for some of it, but it just really fell apart in the second half. And really, I mean, that was a classic example of defense wins championships. We've heard it since we were little. You've heard NFL announcers talk about it. And really the way that the defenses played on both sides. I mean, the score was 6-9 for a long time. And these are obviously by far the two best teams in college football. And so I think that we saw, I mean, just two amazing defenses that probably could have stopped multiple NFL teams with the combination of edge rushers. Their linebackers were blitzing, going fast downhill all night. Their corners, other than Alabama's young corner, I don't remember his name, but number 6 he was getting picked on because he was noticeably slower than the others. But two just outstanding defenses overall. And ultimately, Georgia had the better defense and came out on top, which I think we saw the defense helping the offense. You know, they 2 touchdowns at the end of the game, one from the defense, one from the offense. And that pick 6 that sealed the game and really stole the chances from Alabama was
Yeah,
just I got chills watching it. It was incredible to
it
see.
was incredible. And I mean, a couple notable things about that defense, those big boys on the line, number 99, number 95, those are bigger than, I mean, a lot of linemen that I've ever seen. Those guys were there to play. And yeah, and then I mean, Alabama had a shot, like the classic comeback late, couple minutes left of the game or 90 seconds left or whatever. But that pick 6, I mean, going back to Bryce Young not really being himself. But I just I don't know. Bryce Young not being himself, but the defense I think should get more credit than that because they were on one. They were playing for it. They had to make a name against number 1 Alabama, and they really did.
Yeah, they proved that they were the best team in the country. And I don't think anybody can doubt that. Even Nick Saban said that Georgia kicked their butts in the fourth quarter. And that was no secret to anybody. It was a strong performance coming out of halftime. And Georgia just got the momentum and ran with it, which I think was really fun to see. One of the cherry on tops for me at the end of the game was I think there was about 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Alabama still had a chance. There was still some light at the end of the tunnel, but Georgia with their 2-headed running back attack, I mean, they ran hard for a good
Yeah,
5 minutes. They just punched the clock out, pounded the rock 5 yards at a time. And Kirk Herbstreit said at one time, if Alabama keeps giving Georgia 5 yards at a time, this game's going to be over. And they did. They just 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, 1st and 10,
yeah,
2nd and 5. And it was hard running football. They had the stamina at the end of the game, which I know Kirby Smart had said that wasn't the case after the SEC championship. They were criticized on their stamina, and they came out and proved that they're conditioned well. Their O-line, I mean, like you said, just some hogs up front, and they really made it happen.
Yeah, and to see the team like that, I mean, yeah, you just chip away, And yeah, it's cool to see some of those huge plays. I mean, Stetson Bennett had a completion, what was that, like 50, 60 yards downfield where he put it right out in front of the guy. You
Yeah,
know,
that was
that's
sick.
money. And to show that on a national stage is a lot of fun. But also, you got to get down in the trenches and just pound the rock.
Yeah, and it looked like the same running back to me that Georgia had because they were just, one guy would get a series, there would be a timeout or move the chains, other guy would come in and just pick up where he left off, fresh legs, fresh breath, and
Yeah.
they were running hard. So overall, great game. That's what you want out of the national championship. I know critics are going to say it was two SEC teams, and I get that. I mean, we like to see other people in. I was pulling for Cincy in the first place. But at the end of the day, there's no doubt that we saw the two best teams in the nation go head to head for a full 4 quarters. And I think that that's what you want out of the national championship.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, let's talk about these two coaches because these are one of a kind. I mean, these are very successful guys. And yeah, Kirby Smart might not have as many rings as Nick Saban. But just, I mean, let alone the fact to be competitive all season in a really tough conference like the SEC is a challenge in itself, let alone to make it to the national championship. So, what do you think about Kirby Smart and Nick Saban?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that we could talk about with Kirby Smart. He's a Saban product, much like a lot of the people that Saban goes up against now. We saw Jimbo Fisher take him down at A&M earlier this season, and believe it or not, he's the first coach to ever beat Nick Saban as somebody who coached under him, which that's just a crazy stat in itself. But I saw a great article this morning kind of recapping the game, and it talked about how Kirby Smart stuck with Saban. He passed up on multiple head coaching opportunities because he wanted to learn and he really wanted to know the Saban way and how to win national championships. Back when they were at LSU about a decade ago, he went to Miami with him, to the Dolphins for a brief moment, and then he spent some time with him after that. And I think that it's shown, Kirby Smart was here for 5 years ago now in the 2017 national championship, and he came up short. But hey, fast forward 5 years, you take the lessons that you learn from that, and you can tell in his gameplay and his aggressive plan that that's the Saban way. And he took it and made it his own. I didn't realize until yesterday that Kirby Smart was a Georgia grad. That was his alma mater, and he was able to bring back the first national championship to Georgia since 1980, which is just cool. I mean, that hits you in all the feels, and
Yeah,
I mean,
really
hats
full
off to
circle.
him on the execution.
Yeah, that was cool. I mean, yeah, good for Kirby Smart. And I mean, good for Nick Saban for, I mean, he keeps it going consistently. And I mean, yeah, he's, fell short this time and got beat by Texas A&M in a really good game, but also, I mean, he works hard, he knows how to run a good football program. Nobody could deny that. Even losing, I mean, it was a good game. It was 9-6 for most of the game. And if you look at time of possession and things like that, he's a good coach, but a cool story with Kirby Smart and what he's done with the program and just been able to just build those guys and let them have a chance and really just be able to go for it. So yeah, props to those guys and definitely the most competitive division of football to conference of football too.
There's no doubt about it. And I just did a quick Google search of Saban so that we can give him some credit as well. I mean, hands down, the best college football coach of today, of our era, that we've really ever seen, and might go down in history as the all-time best. But a couple stats to throw out there: since 2008, his football team, wherever it's been, has been at the top number one seed of the poll once or all of a season. And so that every single year since 2008. So that's crazy. Number one
That's
team
insane.
every year since 2008. That doesn't just happen. also, I mean, on top of that success, 21 bowl game appearances, with 15 of those being wins, 9 SEC West titles with 8 SEC championships. So he's only lost the SEC once every time that he's made the championship. And the last thing is he only has 25 losses in his career at Alabama total. And so, I mean, when you pair that with the 180 plus wins that he has, credit to that guy. He'll be there before he retires again, back in the big stage. And no doubt he'll increase that number by another 1 or 2.
Yeah, for sure. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we definitely got the best game possible on Monday night for the national championship. So hope everybody else enjoyed it. Fun doing a recap of just some good college football. That's about as good as it gets. But getting a little bit outside of football, no baseball still with the lockout, just in case anybody's wondering.
I did see a quick update today as you intro our next topic. Let me find that update on baseball.
I just wanted to, while Duncan pulls that up, slide on over to the rink and see what's going on over at Climate Pledge Arena with the Seattle Kraken. But Dunk, you got that up for us?
Yeah, so it's saying, as of earlier this afternoon, a month into the lockout, MLB players will finally meet for negotiations. So it looks like they're going to meet, and work towards a resolution. Looks like they're not going to talk about free agency or salary arbitration, but they're going to talk about ways to de-incentivize tanking, for good draft picks, or elimination of the playoffs for draft picks. So I know that's been a big thing in contention lately. Is, do you basically throw a season to get a lot of good draft picks? And the NFL, that happens as well, but with the MLB and so many games that they have, it looks like that's something that they're going to talk about here, later this week. But that's all for baseball for now. Jumping into the Seattle Kraken, give you a little bit of update for them as college football wraps up and baseball still absent. Hunter, we've got the Kraken. They're not looking so hot, but there's still a lot of hockey left.
Yeah, they're not having the inaugural season that the Golden Knights had in Las Vegas. Bringing up the bottom of the Pacific Division at 10-20. But I mean, hey, got to start somewhere. And it's not for a lack of trying, and it's not for a lack of fans. That's for sure. I think every game has been sold out. Tickets are still like $200 for a game. So it's ridiculous. I still haven't been to one, but got myself a hat, got the boys some hats for Christmas.
Yeah.
Gotta love the nice 47 brand Carhartt edition.
Pretty
Kraken
sweet
hat, so that everybody can wear it proud. We're not the worst team in hockey, which is refreshing. And we've had some close ones for sure. I mean, we just lost to last night. We just lost by 1 score to the Avalanche, who are a good team. And we were up at one point. We were up 3-2, and then the Avalanche came back and tied it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good sign. I think for the inaugural season, the Kraken have to do poorly. I mean, if they're trying to follow suit with this season's Seahawks or the last 2 decades of the Mariners, you got to pay your dues and be a bad professional sports team in Seattle. But a lot of hockey left, 10-20 right now, not sitting great, but the season does go through the end of April, which is exciting. We got a lot more hockey, and hopefully we can catch a game here at some point. But yeah, I get the updates on my phone. They've had a lot of close games, which is, I think, the exciting part. And even though they might be young and inexperienced and trying to kind of put it all together right now, there's definitely a lot of potential for this new franchise.
Yeah, and their point differential isn't terrible. And I mean, they've had some go to OT, they've had some shootouts. So, I mean, I feel like we're in there, and especially for a young team, you're bringing all these guys together. You're trying to create a culture. You're trying to find the best players from all these different teams. You're trying to make a statement and create something for the fan base to follow. But we don't have anything to go off of. We've never had a professional hockey team, so it's still new. It's still exciting, and I think there's a lot of potential moving forward. It's kind of hard to watch the games because they're on Root Sports, but a fun fact, even if you can't stream it on the computer, if you get the Root Sports app on your phone, you can watch it on your phone with no
Mm.
subscription or anything. So it's fun to
Shout
tune
out
into
to the
those.
people.
Yeah. Another thing that I found out, sometimes the games are on ESPN Plus. So that's a
Nice.
perk too.
Good
Um,
one.
but yeah, I mean, it's a fun energy. You see, also have to say, these are probably the coolest jerseys in hockey. The color
Definitely.
scheme and the logo, and I mean, everybody has a jersey. It's hard to go to Costco or somewhere else and not see one.
Yeah, good branding for sure. You love to see that from the logo to the color scheme and all the details in between. It's super cool, and I've already, when I've worn my hat to work and out in Boise, people are already asking about it. Oh, Kraken! Oh, what's that team? Haven't seen that hat before. So definitely some good buzz, and they weren't going to have the same season that the Golden Knights had because they changed the draft rules, so we naturally didn't get some of those really good players that ended up being locked on other NHL teams. But hey, regardless, we're happening. Hockey is in Seattle. It's here to stay, and hopefully a lot more exciting here down the pipeline.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, you guys have heard us talk about the Sonics before, but hopefully this gives some
Mm.
sort of birth, some sort of discussion at least to an NBA future here in Seattle.
Yeah, with the sellout crowds, with the expensive ticket prices, and the brand new arena, it's just a matter of time before the
It's
Sonics
insane. It
return.
has to happen. These these crowds, and especially with, I think, part of I think just the money and the people in Seattle and in the surrounding areas, with the technology boom in the last 10 to 12 years. I mean, the Sonics left 14 years ago already.
Wow.
And so that was right before all this. So I think there's definitely a new energy. And I think that when the Kraken find their footing and develop that culture and that fan base, I think it'll definitely give way to the NBA.
Yeah, very excited for the future and the potential of the Kraken. Not going to see any Stanley Cups hoisted in Seattle this season, but hopefully within the next 4 or 5 seasons, we're contenders in the Pacific and can really make a name for hockey in the Northwest because it's been a long time coming, highly anticipated, and obviously a huge fan base to kick off the 2021-2022 season.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, do you know how many games there are in a season?
I don't know how
I know it
many.
feels NBA-esque, not as many as baseball, but somewhere in between.
It looks like they've got about 30 games left. So they've played about 30 now. So maybe like a 70 game season. We'll see if that sounds right to all of our hockey people out there.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this is episode 82, and there are 82 games in an NHL season.
There
So
you go. I
it's
was close.
exactly half of an MLB season. So hopefully we can keep you guys up to date and entertained over on the ice.
Yeah, fun to bring some Kraken updates. I'll have to, now that I know I can get on my phone, definitely have to get that going and get a little live Kraken action. I got to see it over Thanksgiving when I was in Seattle for that holiday. But yeah, I got to keep up on my Kraken knowledge. But that's all the hockey we got for now. Stay tuned as the Stanley Cup approaches. We'll try to get back on the ice before then, and we'll go get some, at least some minor league steelhead and what do you got up there? The silver tips and the Thunderbirds. So we'll try to consume all the hockey we can to keep
Yeah,
keep getting
those are
our
pretty
knowledge up.
electric games too. Get us back on the ice.
Definitely.
We like that saying. I think that'll give birth to a new segment as well.
Yeah, a little CTL trademark, maybe a t-shirt in the future. Well, that's all we've got for episode 82. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And remember the giveaway that we announced last week. Any review up to this point will qualify for our giveaway, and any new interview will review will as well. So make sure you hop on to Apple Podcasts and drop a quick 5-star rating and a little comment for a review. Anybody on there that does that, let us know when you've done it, and you will be entered into our January 2022 CTL merch giveaway.
Yeah, and remember that goes through the end of the month. We want to kick off the beginning of the year to the climbers. Just give you guys a thank you. And so, yeah, any review through the entire month of January. So window is still wide open, and we love to get your guys' feedback.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't joined the Climbers Facebook page, head on over to Facebook, join the Climbers group exclusively of Climb the Ladder listeners, made especially for you. Get first episode previews, updates, interview tips and hints, and all the good stuff that we're releasing from CTL on a weekly basis. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and as always,
Let's climb the ladder.